What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my album reviews. This is the week of February 25th, and I've got a wonderful collection of albums for you to go through and a few mentions as well, so stick around to the end because I've got a bigger list to share with you that you should definitely be having on your radar this week. As well, I wanted to mention to go check out my Patreon, patreon.com/DustyOrgan. For only $4 a month, you get access to my album release schedule, a local concert calendar schedule, as well as merch discounts, concert galleries, behind the scenes actions. There's so much goodies, and it's only $4 a month. That is less than a cup of coffee that you're going to spend tomorrow at Starbucks, and you know it, and I know it. As well, I'm happy to say that I've sold out of a couple items at my merch store, but that doesn't mean everything's gone, so there are still some hoodies and t-shirts that you should definitely go grab before they're gone. People are loving it. They're super comfortable. I've been wearing mine all week. I had to take it off for this, otherwise I'd be wearing the same thing every single week, so mix it up a little bit. But you should definitely get yours as well. There's some great options. DustyOrgan.bigcartel.com. The links are all in my description. Go check those out. And before we get into things, I just wanted to share that this week was really good. I had a really productive week. A lot of great things happened, which includes me being invited by this first band to go shoot video for their album release party at Lee's Palace here in Toronto. It was a blast. They're such a great live band. And stay tuned for some of that footage. I'm going to be hopefully sharing a bit of that as well on my socials and on this channel. So I guess that's it. Let's get into these album reviews. I feel like the genre of Canadiana doesn't really get thrown around a lot, but every so often there is a group that comes through with a very Canadian sound. It's hard to put into words. There's something about it in the sense that Americana kind of encompasses the traditional music elements and roots of, the States. You got bluegrass, folk, country, there's a bit of that all to it. While Canadiana is a bit more true to Canadian sounds in terms of the alternative rock, folk rock twang, there's something about it that just really feels Canadian. And within that genre, there's still the sense of being the underdog. Something I feel like Canadian artists are always carrying around, almost like a chip on their shoulder because of the competition compared to US markets and everything like that. And Toronto alt rock 5-piece long range hustle bring all of that together on their new album, I Am Alive As Long As You Say I Am. This album evokes a really strong Canadiana sound to it, and there's still this sense of the underdog that is very invigorating. And as you're listening to it, you just really hope deep down that these guys are going to succeed. There's something very charming and enthusiastic about their sound. And that influence of their musical peers and their geographical situation are part of the inspiration of this album. Not to get too meta, but the title is a philosophical and poetic nod to the idea that you exist within your community when you are acknowledged and interacting with others. And in regards to the album, just by listening to it, you are making it real and existing. I'll let that sink in for a little moment. And with the philosophy aside, the surface level of this record is a tremendous alternative rock album, situated boldly between arena-sized rock and humble folk rock as well. And the latter being a style that was more heavily introduced into the sound on earlier records, and this time they've kind of pushed it a bit further out. But there is still an element to it, considering this was produced by Tony Dugan, who's worked with Winter Sleep and Hey Rosetta, to name a few. What I really liked about this record too was the ebb and flow of it. There's this natural progression of energy and melancholy and introspection. And because of that, they've built all of this space for really capturing guitar riffs and sing-along choruses and full band harmonies. And one really strong element of this album too is the presence of the lead piano on this record. It finds its way into songs to invigorate the melody and just bring this more down-to-earth and cinematic quality to it. And like I mentioned before, the presence of the underdog spirit is what really glues this album together. So I'm going to give this album a really strong 7.5 out of 10. Could even be pushed to an 8 if we're going to round up. Good job, guys. Minneapolis 5-piece Early Eyes have done something exceptionally fun with their debut album, Look Alive! Exclamation point at the end. On the surface, it's a very groovy and upbeat indie pop album, but with a little patience and a closer eye, you can start to notice a range of influences that come through on their songwriting style and the details in the production. Elements of hyperpop, emo, pop punk, art pop, indie pop, bubblegum pop come together on what feels like a very unpredictable yet engaging collection. And while jumping between styles really does pay off for the band on this record, but at the same time, the cohesiveness and the consistency of the record starts to fumble a little bit. There are some really great hooks and melodies on this record, don't get me wrong, but sometimes it does feel like a grab bag of songs rather than a cohesive body of work. But overall, I really enjoyed the creative instincts of Early Eyes on this record. I thought they made a lot of interesting choices that really paid off when they do, and they're helping to feed into this new generation of modern indie pop that isn't just continuing copy-pasting from previous generations. A style that really strays away from labels and genres. After a couple listens, I felt like this one deserved a solid 7 out of 10. So Toronto indie rock trio Fjord Mustang essentially came out of nowhere. The members have played in various DIY bands in the local music scene, and they've also been friends for over a decade now. So behind the scenes, this is kind of like a star-crossed origin story, but for the rest of us, they're essentially a band that came to be out of the pandemic in 2020. Nevertheless, their experience together and their chemistry took very little time to take off, and they've now put out their debut album, Solitaire. In a nutshell, Solitaire is an album with really strong bones and an articulate message that talks about dealing with change and the passage of time in all its forms. The album is full of wonderful guitar riffs, very dreamy, shoegaze-esque vocals, and the strong sense of identity and character. And considering their past influences, this album really holds steady in the world of slacker rock and DIY and melodic indie rock. And despite only being a band for less than 2 years, I felt that this debut release really helped to put Fjord Mustang on the map in terms of being a must-watch Canadian band. I'm going to give this one a strong 7.5 out of 10. And as promised, I'm here to share my list of album releases on top of these reviews that you should definitely go check out and have on your radar. And like I mentioned before, if you go sign up for my Patreon, you can have access to this album release schedule. It's pretty handy. Every week there's a ton of releases, so it's great to have a little spot to check it all out and keep it all organized. Starting with Black Radio 3 from Robert Glasper. This is a feature-heavy collection, clocking in almost at an hour and a half. It is a very dense, wonderful blend of hip-hop and jazz that we've all come to know Robert Glasper for. As well, Welsh act Buzzard 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 put out their debut album, Backhand Deals. This one's a really great album if you enjoy 70s inspired music and with a new modern twist. And for all my metalheads, go check out Wolfric. They're an Albertan post-hardcore band. They put out their new album, Clones, this week as well. And to close it off, I've got 2 EPs that you should I highly recommend. First off, No Bros' new album, Live Your Truth, Shred Some Gnar. And on a slightly different pace, go check out Arnie Margaret's debut EP, Intertwined. It is a beautiful, beautiful 4-song collection. You are going to fall instantly in love with her and her sound. She is a tremendous new artist, and I'm very excited to see what else comes next. I hope you found some new music to enjoy in this week's album reviews. Thanks again for watching. Let me know in the comments what you agreed with, what you didn't agree with. Maybe there's something you'd love me to talk about next week. And as well, don't forget to check out my store to get some merch. Sign up for the Patreon if you're a good person, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you next week.